Rugby Championship week number 2, folks. All Blacks bounce back at Eden Park and Box, despite uncontested scrums, still squeeze the life out of the Wallabies for a bonus point win. Let's pick 15 of the best players from the round, go through some stats. You know I love me a stat. Been buried in some stats for the last couple of hours. Go through them and you guys can let us know your thoughts on who you might have standout performers of the week. Gonna start with loose head prop, and I'm gonna start with a guy who's getting some good praise here in New Zealand, Tamaiti Williams, the 140 kilo loose head. He wasn't even really supposed to be playing because it was De Groot who was the starter the week before. With De Groot getting an injury, Tamaiti came from outside the 23 into the number 1 jersey and looked pretty good. I think the All Blacks benefited from the wet and benefited from having more scrums than we did down in Wellington. And he's certainly a big part of that, helping to boss around the Puma scrum, which was under a heck of a lot of pressure. I mean, the around the park stuff doesn't really do him justice. 2 runs, no meters. One of them's like a big carry, but it doesn't really get anywhere because it's 1 meter out from the Puma's line. But the next phase, Savia scores, so you got to give him some credit for drawing in some tacklers. He's got 1 pass. He's got 9 from 10 tackles, which is a pretty good shift, including 1 dominant tackle. But ultimately, you want his 140 kilos in the scrum. And heading over to South Africa in a couple of weeks, where they're also known for their scrummaging, you might assume he could be a kind of handy player. 140 kilos running around at altitude will be an interesting one. He's certainly done kind of 60, 70-minute shifts before in Super Rugby, but at test level at altitude is going to be a big one for him. But hey, we're still 2 weeks away, so we've got to wait for the selections and whatnot first. But I'm really encouraged, and I think a lot of New Zealand fans would be as well with his performance. Tight head, I'm going to go with one of the South African guys. It was kind of hard because, as I said, uncontested scrums, it's kind of hard for a lot of the props to show what they can do. But Thomas du Toit certainly made Angus Bell concede at least 1 penalty at scrum time, which is less than what we saw from the week before. But as I said, uncontested scrums meant we didn't really get much of a scrum contest in the second half of this game. But Thomas du Toit around the park, apart from the kind of scrummaging, 11 from 11 tackles. He's the only prop to get into kind of double-figure completed tackle numbers this week, which is a heck of a shift from the big man, including 1 dominant tackle. He also wins a turnover. So defensive shift-wise, massive from him. 3 carries, 6 meters is about the kind of appropriate number of meters you want from that number of carries from a guy in the number 3 jersey. He's got a couple of passes, and he apparently even wins a line-out. I don't recall him winning a line-out, but I haven't watched the full game back just yet. So that's what the stats say. Thomas du Toit. You guys have a lot of props in South Africa. Hooker, I was kind of torn on this one, but I ended up with going Malcolm Marx. I love a try, and he gets 2 of them. Both of them maul tries. Malcolm Marx has been doing that for years, ever since he played for the Lions way back in the day. He was always one of the top try scorers of Super Rugby in its old form, and most of those pretty much from line-out mauls, so he is very efficient at that. 2 runs for 12 meters. That's also very efficient. I don't think the maul stuff counts as runs. It's all the kind of open play stuff from him. 7 from 7 tackles. That's 100%. A couple of passes. He does concede 1 penalty. But if you wanted impact from the bench from South Africa, you certainly got a fair bit in the introduction of Malcolm Marx. Locks, I'm going to go with another South African here in Ruan Nokia. Only his 2nd cap for the Springboks, I believe, and his 1st ever start. And he's the top line-out guy of the week. And maul tries pretty much always start, not exclusively, but most of the time, they start with line-outs. And he won a lot of them. He won 9, certainly easily the most line-out wins of the week. And 2 of those Springbok maul tries come from secured ball, thanks to Ranokia's work in the air. He has 6 runs for 7 meters, which is not exceptional, but it's normal for a lock. The big men, apart from the kind of freakish ones who can kind of get really, like bloody Peter Steph du Toit last week when he was playing lock, but you know what I mean. Regular locks don't tend to get much more than 1 meter a carry, maybe 2, but that's still a decent number of taking the ball to the line. 8 passes, though, is certainly the most of any South African forward this week. So that, combined with his line-out work, shows you that the box coaches are happy to rely on his ability with his hands to shift the ball around, because not every guy in the type 5 has that kind of skill set. 10 from 12 tackles is a pretty good one. He does have 2 penalties conceded, which is the kind of one drawback of his game, including one of them when they were like right camped on the Wallabies line. And I think he was bound into a ruck and grabbed the ball when he shouldn't have been doing it because someone was bound onto him. But apart from that, I thought his contribution to the side was pretty impressive. An All Blacks lock as well in Tupou Vaa'i. Certainly one of his better All Blacks performances in a wee while. There's been kind of a few murmurings about him from All Blacks fans about how maybe he's not the answer in the second row. And admittedly, man, we've got no Scott Barrett because he's injured. And remember, Retallick and Whitelock are gone. So our locking depth and then Tuipulotu being injured just means like Vai's had to stand up. This week, I think he did. 19 from 21 tackles is massive. That's a huge, huge effort from him. He's got that intercept play where he shoots up out of the line because the ball's out of the ruck. I don't think Argentinian fans thought it was out of the ruck, but the referee calls it out of the ruck and you play to the whistle. Not out of the ruck. That directly leads to the Caleb Clark tryout on the left wing. He's got 8 runs for 14 metres, which again, like Norkia's stats, that's not fantastic, but it's kind of regular numbers for a lock. He beats a defender. He wins 4 lineouts, which is the most of any All Black in that game. First equal anyway with Blackadder. Couple of passes. Doesn't concede any penalties. Yeah, I thought he had a pretty good day at the office, did old Tupou Vaa'i. Lucy's blindside, I'm going to go with, again, Pieter-Steph du Toit. And we'll get to some honourable mentions at the end because I thought Blackadder had a pretty good game for the All Blacks as well. But Pieter-Steph du Toit, 52 metres. He had 40-something last week, and I thought that was high. This week's even higher, 52 metres. 2 clean breaks and 2 defenders beaten. Does anyone want to have a word with Pieter-Steph to tell him he's a forward? He's wearing a kind of relatively low number jersey. He gets crazy numbers with the ball carriage. 13 carries, 52 metres, 2 clean breaks, 2 defenders beaten. If that was your winger, you'd be like, oh man, that's some good involvements. It's a lot of carries. Like, those are stupidly high numbers. 10 from 12 tackles, big defensive shift, including 1 dominant tackle. Wins a turnover, which I get the feeling might have been a line-out steal rather than a kind of breakdown turnover. Wins a line-out, which directly leads to, I think, the final maul try for the Boks, the second one for Malcolm Marx. He almost scored a wonder try at the death, but not to be from that cross kick. That would have been absolute icing on the cake, but still, even without that, very, very, very impressive performance from Pieter-Steph. Another loose forward, and I'm going to go with another South African. And again, it's a tough one, but Van Staden on the open side for South Africa, he's impressive. I mean, he doesn't get as many games as he would have liked. He spends a bit more time on the bench than he would have liked because he's got the captain in front of him in Kolisi, but he gets a start. And I think he doesn't do himself any disservice. He continues to put his hand up, doesn't he? Gets a try from a maul. They got 3 from mauls, and that was 1 from Van Staden. Took it well. 7 runs for 21 metres is a pretty solid return. I mean, it's not quite Pieter-Steph du Toit numbers, but Pieter-Steph du Toit is not kind of normal human that you can kind of compare to. Beats a defender. He's got 1 pass. And then defensively, it's always kind of where he shines. 11 from 12 tackles, including 1 dominant tackle. Doesn't have any penalties conceded, which is pleasing for a number 7 who's often in those kind of areas that are easy to concede penalties. So he does have a couple of turnovers conceded, which is, again, not perfect game, but overall very, very high rate of contributions from Van Staden. And then number 8, I got to go with Ardie Savea. He puts in a real captain's knock for the ABs. He gets a try from a pick and go, so it's not always the flashy stuff from him this week. It's Matera doing the kind of big dummy this week rather than Savea. He gets a try assist, which is the final pass for the Clark try. He gets 44 metres from 18 carries, so not kind of stupidly high in terms of return on like number of metres per carry, but just huge, huge work rate. 18 carries is massive. He gets 2 clean breaks and 5 defenders beaten. Like him and Pieter-Steph, those are just those kind of X-Factor players that are genuinely on another level from otherwise great players. Both these guys former world players of the current and former world players of the year, and I think that shows. 8 passes, 2 offloads, wins 3 lineouts, 100% tackle rate with 12 from 12, including 3 dominant tackles. He's even credited with a kick, which I can't remember off the top of my head, but man, Artie Savia is a pretty good player. Pretty good player. Those are your forwards. Backs, I'm going to go with TJ as your halfback, TJ Perenara. Another guy who was under a bit of pressure after week 1, doesn't get charged down in this week's games, which is pleasing from his kind of box kicks. There's one point where he's looking to shape for a kick, and the Argentine defense is rushing up on that kicking line, so he just kind of takes a step and passes the thing to Barrett, who then clears. So that's the kind of smart play you want from an experienced guy who should know, he should have the kind of the intuition to know when to kick, when to pass, when you're under pressure, when you've got that extra bit of time. We saw a bit more from him this week. And again, blindside sniping move, sets up a try assist for Will Jordan. That was a heck of a play. Stats-wise, he finishes with 2 runs, 19 meters, which is a good return. When he snipes, he makes it count. 45 passes, 4 kicks, 3 from 3 tackles, including a dominant one. He still looks under pressure from Ratima, because Ratima still looks sharp, but yeah, I thought TJ looked pretty good. And then number 10, I think another guy, if I'm talking about All Blacks, because the entire All Black squad was under pressure after last week, but Damian McKenzie in particular was one of the guys who came under the microscope last week and just played with absolute confidence. Like the try assist that he sets up for Beauden Barrett, just looks really comfortable. Defensive line coming up in his face. Just wait to that kind of perfect moment once you've drawn the defender, shift it wide, put Bodie into a gap. Try time. He scores a try of his own from the Geordie Barrett dink over the top. He kicks 100% of his goals in tough conditions, including some from the sideline. He has 5 runs, but doesn't really get any meters, and unfortunately, if that's a correct stat, but he beats a defender. He's got 6 passes, 14 kicks. Kicking game, barring that kind of one poor kick, which was out on the full, was largely a lot better than the week before. 2 from 2 tackles. Yeah, much improved from D-Mac. Pulled the strings really well, and if I'm not mistaken, they didn't score any points after he left the field. So, yeah, D-Mac getting a fair bit of time at number 10 every game in a row now that he has led the way for the ABs, and I think he's getting better with that kind of extra bit of time in the number 10 jersey. Midfield, I'm gonna go with Geordie Barrett, whose performance was also much criticised after week 1. Looked a lot better. 2 try assists from Geordie in this one. 1 dink over the top for D-Mac. And then the kind of second of Will Jordan's tries. A nice little final pass from Geordie Barrett. He gets over the advantage line well. 7 carries for 36 metres. 4 defenders beaten. Finally putting that big frame of his into use. Remember, he was kept really quiet on his ball carries the week before. He's got a clean break. 12 passes is good involvement, such as what you want from your 12. You want him chucking the ball around. 6 kicks. 8 from 10 tackles. He does concede a penalty, but yeah, fewer comments about Geordie Barrett not being a 12 after this week's game. 13 was a hard one because I don't know that any of the 13s really stood out. Like, did Rico stand out that much? Like, did Sinti stand out a lot? Did Ikitau stand out a lot? I ended up going with Creel. And like, compared to last week, Jesse Creel, this week Jesse Creel was a lot quieter. But as I said, I don't think any of the 13s had like a career best night. 5 runs, 31 metres, a clean break, and 2 defenders beaten is solid without being anything spectacular. 3 passes, 5 from 6 tackles. He's got 1 turnover conceded. He's got a hand in the fussy try. He passes it to Mapimpi before he puts that kick through. But yeah, solid without being spectacular from Creel, I think. But as I said, I don't know that any of the 13s really set the world alight on the weekend. Outside backs, I'm going with Caleb Clark on the left. He took his try really well out on the left wing. He gets into some space. He's got 5 runs for 73 metres, which is a heck of a return. Beats a couple of defenders. Gets his clean break, which I'm not mistaken is probably the try. He's got a pass. He makes 1 from 1 tackles. Doesn't concede any penalties. Does have a couple of turnovers conceded. But yeah, contests for the high balls and whatnot. Caleb Clark replacing Talia certainly did himself a bit of good for his potential future selection. Right wing, competitive one. Will Jordan, 2 tries. 2 tries, great finisher. Will Jordan, his try scoring record goes on. I think it's 33 from 33 tests for him. First one, some proper gas when TJ offloads to him. Second one, a bit of gas and a bit of power to break through and get himself over the line. 9 carries, 84 meters. 84 meters is up there. I think it's the first top best guy for the week in terms of run meters. 2 clean breaks, 3 defenders beaten. He does have kind of one poor kick, which leads to the Almua yellow card, which is a bit of a miscue, but that was when he shifted to fullback. On the wing, he certainly looked really sharp as nails. And then fullback is going to be potentially a controversial one because I am going to go with a Wallaby. Believe it or not, I managed to get a Wallaby into the side. My handwriting on the bottom of the whiteboard is tough at that angle. Tom Wright. I can't even see it. Tom Wright. There his name is. Why Tom Wright? This is a bizarre selection, Mark. Well, 2 from 2 tackles, and both of them are try-saving tackles. The Wallabies get beaten by more if not for Tom Wright. And he's not really that well known for his defensive capabilities, but he tackles Mapimpi and he tackles Colby. And ask Owen Farrell how hard it is to tackle Colby. So without him, I reckon the Wallabies concede at least 10 more points. And he's got a decent kicking game. He kicks 50-22, I think it was the scrum set play. And he puts a kick through for Jorgensen, which was maybe the best move of the Wallabies' entire attacking game. Like, they didn't score any tries, but that was the kind of moment they looked most like scoring a try. I know they didn't get close to the line, but they actually cut the box defense open for a minute before it ended up getting shut down. But 22 meters, 6 carries, that's a good return. Beats a couple of defenders. Yeah, on a night that was really poor for the Wallabies, I actually think Tom Wright had a pretty good game. It'd be easier to just go Beauden Barrett or go with Fussy because both these guys scored tries. But yeah, at a really tough night at the office, I think Tom Wright played pretty well. Promise some honourable mentions. Before I get to those, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. You know you love a stat. I love a stat. There's been plenty of stats. Like the video, comment and all that jazz. Honourable mentions, Cody Taylor obviously played really well for the All Blacks. Lomax also played pretty well. Like, him and Tamati Williams both gave away soft penalties. Like, Lomax's no-arms tackle was a pretty silly one. But, yeah, I think the entire All Black front row played pretty well. It's a shame we didn't get to see more from the box front row just because of the way the uncontested scrums went. Blackadder, I thought, played really well for the ABs in the back row. Evan Etzebeth came on earlier than expected. He's a man-mountain kind of as usual. Tizano made a heck of a lot of tackles for the Wallabies. Doesn't offer much ball in hand like you get from McCright. McCright's injured, so Tizano defensively gets around the park a lot. Chocobares in the midfield for the Pumas also looks very busy. Number 12 was a kind of tough one this week. Back 3-wise, though, like Bodie could have been in. I've snubbed Colby 2 weeks in a row. He is electric. Fussy at fullback certainly showed some gas for his try. Mapimpi's kick to set up the try was really nice for Fussy as well. Malia probably looked the most dangerous of the Argentinian backs, kind of ball in hand, but he had a couple of fluffed lines as well. Jorgensen looked sharp from the bench for the Wallabies as well. But yeah, that's the team of the week, folks. Who would you have? Who's the kind of number one omission that I have snubbed this week? Who's the one that you thought, wait, that guy played terrible. Why isn't your team of the week? Is it Tom Wright? I think I need to disassociate overall Wallabies performance with individual performance. That's the kind of the way team of the week goes. If you're looking for some stuff prior to the next round of Rugby Championship games, check out 2 Cents on Tour. Some Chinese guard asked me if I'm American in a rather hostile tone when I was in China. Because, yeah, I had to ask him how to get into a particular place. And his only question of me was, are you American? When I told him I was a New Zealander, he seemed to let me pass. But if you want to see that, that'll be up there, or potentially down there. You guys take care of yourselves. Thank you, as always, for watching. And I'll talk to you guys again soon. See you later.